Hello my friends, in today's beginner-friendly tutorial, we're going to take on the role of a mad scientist and transform this cute but very normal snail into several stunning creatures, like this gorgeous rainbow snail, or this dark mode snail that probably has night vision, maybe a winged snail that can soar through the sky, and lastly, a mutant snail that would wreak havoc if it escaped the lab. The only thing you'll need for this project is this template I've made for you. You can grab it for free using the link below, or better yet, you can scan this QR code to download it directly to your iPad. All you have to do is find the camera on your iPad. From here, you're going to point it at the code and wait for the yellow link to appear before tapping on it. With the template in your browser, we can hold down on the image and choose Save to Photos. All right, so now that you've got your template ready, let's open up Procreate and jump right in. In Procreate, we're going to go to Photo right here, and then you can load your template. So the most important thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to our layers here and start a new layer. So you're going to tap on the plus sign and you're going to see a layer 2, because we don't want to draw on the template. Once you see your layer 2, you're going to go to Gallery. Just trust me on this. You're going to exit your artwork and then jump back in. This helps lock your layers, and I always recommend that you do that. From here, we're going to go to our brushes and we're going to find the brush that we need. So we're in the classic library. You can access your library by doing like a big pinch like this. So we're in the old brushes. We're going to go to calligraphy here, and then we're going to tap our monoline. Now I want to make my brush nice and smooth for outlining my snail, so I'm going to tap on the brush, and there's a feature here called stabilization that's really cool. So when you go there, you can turn up the first slider all the way, so amount goes to 100%. The rest of these sliders, you can kind of put them in the middle. They don't have to be exactly 50%, just anywhere in the middle is fine. That is going to make your brush so much smoother and easier to work with. So I have a black color picked out. And for the size of the brush, I'm just going to use 1%. So that controls the size. And if you make a mistake, this button goes undo. That will save you in a lot of situations. So we're going to super zoom in on our base snail. And we're just going to go ahead and trace this guy. So you can see my lines are super smooth. It makes it a lot easier to draw with. Some people don't like stabilization, but I think it's a pretty great feature. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw. And one of the main things that I'm looking for is not to leave any gaps like this. Gaps like this are going to cause lots and lots of problems later on when we're coloring. So we just want to avoid those if we can. So really take your time with this, because this is going to be our base snail. One of the great things about Procreate is that we can easily make copies of things and make different versions, which is what this project is all about. So getting this first snail to look really good is the key. You can change whatever you want about the snail. So if you want to change its mouth to a little ooh mouth, you can definitely do that. So the templates are here for your creative imagination, and you can kind of adjust them any way that you want. So if you want to already start customizing things, you totally can. Just remember, this is going to be our original snail, so we want it to look like a snail you might find in nature. Great, so now I'm going to draw my shell here. So I have a lot of practice in Procreate. I could probably do this whole thing in one go. But if you are struggling with that, all you have to do is zoom in, and then you can just slowly take your time like this. And this is a great approach. This works really well. So whichever option works for you, you can use that. Now another thing I want to mention is that there is a help library in the links below. So if you run into problems like if your pen stops working, or you draw something on the wrong layer, there are quick little videos that will help you solve all of those problems. So you can check those out if you run into any issues. Okay, wonderful. So the last kind of decision that I have to make is whether to include these eyeballs on top of its eyes. Some people like them, some people don't, so you can decide if you're going to draw them. I'm purposefully not coloring in my eyeballs, because that way every snail I can make a little bit different. But if I color it solid black, I'll be stuck with that. But if you want to do that, you absolutely can. So here is my base snail. So if you need a little bit more time, you can pause the video and take your time, and then we'll move on to making copies of our snail. Okay, wonderful. So now that we have our regular normal snail, we're going to take our arrow. The arrow lets you move things. Now here's a really important trick for Procreate. Don't touch the bounding box. Don't touch the snail that you're trying to move. Look how far away my pen is, and I can still move my object. Because sometimes when you try and touch it, that feels natural, but it just makes the object bigger and smaller. It's kind of annoying, especially if it's a very small object. So don't touch the thing that you're moving. So we're going to put it right in the middle because that's the normal snail. I also made it a little bit bigger to fit my circle. Okay, great. So I don't want to draw the snail 4 more times. That would be really annoying. So before we do anything else, we're going to make copies for each one of the transformations. So the way that you want to do that, it's so easy. You're going to swipe towards the picture. You're going to swipe left, and there you're going to see the duplicate button. So I have 2 snails. I can't see them because they're right on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is switch back to my arrow. Now I can move them around. So I'm going to put 1 in each of these circles. So you're going to swipe left. So you should have 5 snails in your layers once you're done. Okay, wonderful. So I have my snails, 1 for each circle, and I do want to make sure that I actually have 5 snails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you don't have more than 5 because that would mean that some of the snails are doubled up. That could cause some problems. So if I just want to count and make sure that you have the correct number. Okay, but we've kind of created a little problem here. I can't remember which snail is which. So in Procreate, a really good trick is if you use this little checkbox, you can turn the layer on and off. And look at that. I know that this layer is my mutant snail. And if I go through them, I can figure out which snail is which. So I'm going to find the snail in the middle. That's my normal snail. So for me, that's the one at the bottom, which kind of makes sense. And because I plan to do fancy things to the snail, not super fancy, I'm just planning to do some patterns and maybe some blush on my snail, I want to make sure that I duplicate my layer before I start coloring this. So I'm going to swipe left and duplicate it, and I'm going to use the bottom copy for this snail. So now we actually have 6 snails, so it kind of breaks the rules that I was talking about, but now it's okay. So we're going to make a copy. This is going to protect our outlines and let us do the fancy things we want to do with our snails. So for this snail, this is just the regular snail. So you can pick out earthy colors or whatever you imagine snails to be. So I'm just going to go over how we color in Procreate. So you're going to pick out the color that you want. So I'm going to do this kind of mustard yellow. Then once I have the color loaded in my little circle, I can drag it and I can drop it in. Now, if the color spills out everywhere, that's when I would zoom in and just see if there's any little gaps letting that color escape. If your color is escaping, you might want to color something else and just leave that part alone and come back to it. Just see if it's just that part or everything that's causing problems. And then the other really cool thing is if you can't figure out why something's not coloring properly, we can actually color things in by hand. So for example, if this part just wasn't working, maybe I'll just grab a different color actually. So I'm going to grab a different color here. I can just color this by hand. And because we protected our outlines, look at that. I can't actually draw on top of my outlines. It's very easy to hand color. So if you need to do that, you can do that. Obviously, dropping in the color like this is just so much easier and so much more fun, but in a pinch, coloring by hand will definitely work. The monoline might not be the best brush for coloring by hand. You could probably pick something from the airbrushing family that would work much better, but that's a good little trick in a pinch. So here I have like some nice browns. If you're looking for brown colors, sometimes they're hard to find. Those will all be in your orange section. So it's weird to think about this, but brown is a type of orange. So I think this guy's gonna have just black eyes. And I might add a little kawaii thing that I like to do. It's kind of like a darkish red, and then I just add a little depth to the eyes like this. And then I also like to add sparkles some little reflections. So I'll make my brush a little bit bigger so I can add those. I really like how that looks. Okay, great. So I have my base snail, but now I kind of want to make it even though it's a normal snail, I want to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to grab the original color of my snail. And this is another really handy trick if you don't know this. Let's say I want to go back to a color that I used, I can actually pick it up. So I'm going to pick up this brown color, watch. I just hold my finger down and bam, there's the brown color that I was using. So I'm going to grab the original color of my snail and just darken it a little bit. And I'm going to use this to draw some spots on my snail. I made my brush a little bit bigger to make it easier to draw. Okay, so I have some patterns on here. And then my other favorite thing to add to pretty much anything with a face is some blush, but we need a different brush for the blush. So we're gonna go to airbrushing, and the soft brush is my all-time favorite. So I'm gonna pick out a nice red color, but I don't want my snail to look like a clown. So I'm going to lower the opacity. So this bottom slider makes the brushes more gentle. This is really cool. So I'm going to set it to 30%, and then maybe for size, maybe like 2%, and then I can just add a little tiny bit of like a blush there, and that looks very cute. Okay, so take your time and finish your original snail, and then come back when you're ready for doing the next snail. Okay, great. So we're going to kind of tackle this in terms of which snails are easiest. So we're going to go to the rainbow snail next. And of course, we have to find the snail. So I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to toggle through, turning them on and off, and bam, I know it's this snail right here. And again, if I want to do fancy designs, I definitely want to duplicate this snail and use the bottom copy before coloring. So this is a rainbow snail. You can interpret that however you want. I like to start with the shell. So I'm going to start with a red color, and you can decide whether you want like a pastel red or a vibrant red or like maybe a dark red. But whatever shade you start with, you're going to stay with that. So I'm going to do like a pastel. And then for rainbow, it's really easy. I just go around my color wheel here. If for some reason you can't find your color wheel, it's this disc option right there. There's lots of different views for picking out colors. I like the disc. Some people like classic. It doesn't really matter which one you use as long as you can pick out colors. So I'm just going to go around and color in my snail shell, these lovely rainbow colors. And there's just something so satisfying about having colors organized in rainbow order. Okay, wonderful. So now that I have such a colorful shell, I'm going to kind of keep my other colors maybe a little bit more simple. So I'm going to use a white color. And for this snail, I don't know why, but I'm going to give this snail some blue eyes. Let's see what it would look like. And then I'll do like a darker blue. And that's the great thing about Procreate is it's so easy to try different things. And if it doesn't work out, there's always the undo button. I kind of like that. And then I'm going to just add some patterns. So I think I'm going to stick with my rainbow theme. Maybe I'll just make my brush a little bit bigger. And I kind of like adding these like stripes here. And I'll also kind of keep them in rainbow order. Maybe I'll add like a little, I feel like I did this for one of my other projects. And it worked out really nice. Great, so that's the rainbow snail, and the next one we're going to work on is the dark mode. This one might be my favorite one. So I'm going to toggle through and find my dark mode, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to use the bottom copy. It's really important to make that copy for this one. So trust me on this. Actually, let's do a little example so you can kind of see how it works before you commit to it. So it's really important to pick really dark colors for this snail because it is the dark mode, and the light pen won't work on lighter colors. So you kind of want to think of colors like if you cut your disc in half, only pick colors down here. So it kind of is a little bit limiting. So I'm going to pick this really dark blue color, and I'm going to color my snail solid. So I'm actually going to do this little section as well. And then let's add the patterns, and then you can color the rest of it once you understand how it works. And then let's grab the brush that we need. So we're going to go to luminance here at the bottom, and we're going to grab our light pen. So the color needs to be very vibrant. So you're gonna pick it out from this section of your color wheel. So this section here, you can pick any color on the outside, but it has to be in this spot here. So I think I'm gonna do like this blue, this cyan blue. And then let's find the size that we need. So 1% is way too small. Let's do 5%. And then we're gonna start to draw some patterns. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the eyes look kind of like creepy glowing. And this pen is so cool. It literally lights the page up and you can change colors and do fancy patterns. So I'm gonna do, maybe I'll make the mouth kind of light up as well. Ooh, it kind of looks like it's wearing glasses. I'm gonna go with that. So this one's gonna wear like light up glasses. And then from here, I'm gonna draw patterns. So I think for the patterns, I'm gonna stick with like kind of wobbly patterns, like the way I drew on my original snail, but now they're glowing. So that will look really cool. So definitely explore different patterns, different colors. You can just do so much with this brush. Sometimes a bigger size looks better. This brush is also my favorite brush for stars. So I usually go with a slightly bigger size, maybe like 20% if you're gonna do stars. And just doing like little taps, you get this amazing effect. So if I'm doing a night sky, this is my like go-to brush. But yeah, this is super, super fun to do. Okay, so now that you kind of get the gist of where we're going with this, now you can decide the other colors for your snail. So again, we kind of want to stick with dark colors if you're planning to do the patterns. You don't necessarily need to. So I'm going to go with this like really impressive blue color. So if you have some spare time, definitely explore the Luminance brush set. There's so many brushes in there. They're all super amazing and very fun to use. Okay, wonderful. So that is my dark mode snail. The next snail we're gonna work on is the mutant one. The reason I'm leaving the winged one is because I'll show you how to add accessories at the end. It's just a little bit easier. And we can actually add accessories to more than just the winged one. So for example, if you wanted to add like a horn to the rainbow one, you could totally do that. So we'll leave the accessories until the end. So for the mutant one, this one we're gonna get even more creative. So I'm gonna toggle through and find my snail, but this time, don't make a copy of the snail because we're gonna alter it before we start coloring. So I'm gonna make sure I have a black color, and then I'm gonna go back to calligraphy and find my monoline again. And 1% for the size. I'm also gonna pick out my eraser. So I'm gonna go to the eraser and I'm gonna go to airbrushing on the left, and I'm gonna grab the hard airbrush. This is a really good eraser. You could probably just keep that there. And then for the size, maybe like 10% for the size. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add or subtract to the snail. So for example, for my mutant snail, it's been through some like nuclear waste maybe, I don't know. And it has slime coming out of, which is kind of like what snails do anyways. So this just kind of makes sense to me. It's super slimy. Also, slime is just fun to draw. So you can add some slime, maybe like a little bit of it is escaping here. The other thing I want to add to the snail is some spikes. So I think it'd be kind of cool to have spikes coming off the snail. So if anybody messes with this snail, they're going to be very sad about it. So if you want to draw the spike, all you have to do is draw a line kind of curving, pointing towards the direction you want your spike to go. And then from there, you're going to kind of round the top, or you can make it really spiky. If you want to make it super spiky, that would be really cool and actually a little bit easier. So you could just pull it back like that, or you could, if you want a little more advanced, you can make it a little bit rounder and pull it like that. So that's how you draw your spikes. I'm also going to make my brush a little bit bigger, maybe like 12%, and I'm just going to give this, well, actually I want bigger. I'm going to give my snail some very aggressive eyebrows. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to add to the snail are some buff arms. So they're going to kind of start from the side here. And you're going to give them like a little arm like that. But yeah, you can add whatever you want to your snail. And this is where the eraser is going to come in handy. Sometimes you want to subtract stuff, not just add it. So I might like erase this line here. So don't be afraid to erase parts of your snail. Okay, great. So I'm happy with my mutant snail. So before I start coloring, I'm going to duplicate the snail, and I'm going to use the bottom copy for coloring. And the first thing I'm going to color is this toxic slime coming out of the bottom. I love this color. This is probably my favorite color. So, and then I'll make some matching spikes here. So I'm inspired by animals that are like poisonous, and they're very colorful to tell other animals that they're poisonous so they don't eat them. So I think I'm going to use like very vibrant colors for this snail. So I think the only thing missing is this snail needs some patterns here. So I'm just going to do some fun swirls, nothing too serious. And then I would like to add some blush, so I'm going to go back to my airbrushing and soft brush and then just add a little glow here. Even though he's a mutant, he gets embarrassed sometimes. Okay, wonderful. So that's my mutant snail. And then let's tackle the winged snail. So we're going to go into our layers and we're going to find the correct one. So for me, it's this one, and I'm going to duplicate it and use the bottom copy. So you guys probably have a good handle on that. So for the winged snail, we're not going to draw the wings just yet, but let's figure out which wings we would like to use, because that might change how we're thinking about the coloring. So we have like some butterfly wings, we have fire wings, we have like peacock wings, we have bat wings, then we have like angel wings. So I think mine's going to be like a bat themed snail. So I'm going to probably stick with like some darker colors. So whatever wings you decide on, you can kind of theme your snail that way. That usually helps to kind of think ahead. So basically you're just coloring the snail normal, and then we're going to add accessories to it. And I'll show you how we can add accessories really easily. So if I remember correctly, bats kind of have some fur on them. So I'm going to give this one, instead of giving it like spots or anything, this snail is going to be a little furry. So if you need a little bit more time coloring, take a pause here, and then we're going to jump into the accessories. So all the accessories go at the very top. Doesn't matter what snail you're going to put them on. We're going to make a new layer here at the top. And then each accessory needs its own layer. So if I draw more than one accessory today, I'm going to just remember to make a new layer. So I have a black color picked out, I have my monoline at 1%, and then you can decide which pair of wings you want to draw. So I'm going to do this pair of wings. So the layers in Procreate are so wonderful. They let us overlap things, move things, they're really great. So once you're done drawing your wing, we're not going to make a copy of the layer, we're just going to go ahead and color it, because we're planning to move it and it just makes our life a little bit easier. We're also not going to do too many like special effects with this one. We're just going to color it. So once you have your wing colored in, I'm sure you know what to do next. We're going to take the arrow and then we can position our wing. Figuring out the right spot for the wing is a bit challenging, whether it's further back or up here. I think it'll just depend on the wing that you chose for your snail. So I'm going to kind of play around with it. I can also use this green circle and rotate it. So if I need to kind of rotate it to make it work, I think that kind of looks nice after trying a few different things. So that's my winged snail. But I also want to add some horns to mine, and then maybe also, actually I'm going to add a horn to this rainbow snail. So if you are going to add more accessories, you just have to remember to start a new layer. This is really important. Otherwise you won't be able to move it. Whatever's on the layer will move together. So I think this like really cool kind of unicorn horn is going to go on my rainbow snail. And if you think of other accessories that I don't have on my worksheet here, obviously you can draw those as well and add those to your snail. So maybe you think of something that would be really cool to add to the mutant snail. You can definitely do that. I think that would be very fun. Okay, so I have my horn here as my second accessory, and then I'm gonna move it. So this is an example if I touch my object. This horn is pretty small. If I touch it, it just gets bigger and smaller. So I'm gonna make sure I'm not touching it when I'm moving it, and then I can kind of position it on my rainbow snail here. And that's it, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you had fun and picked up a few new Procreate tricks along the way.